Welcome everyone to today's EVS Talks. I'm Julia from Green Rep Institute, and I'm delighted to have you all here for what promises to be a fruitful discussion. This session will be co-led by me and Morgan Janowicz from Green Rep Institute. Joining us today is Olga Kikou, the Director of Advocacy at the European Institute for Animal Law and Policy. She holds a PhD from the University of Massachusetts and worked in international organizations in the nonprofit sector in its research and planning. She has a wide range of interests and expertise, ranging from advancing animal-related causes to building support for social justice and green issues, strengthening citizen participation, and reinforcing social reform. Olga is a substitute representative of the Citizens Committee for the DKHH European Citizens Initiative, the only European Commission initiative to have obtained a positive commitment for the European Commission, and she was instrumental in its success. In this interview, we will explore the progressiveness of the European Union on just food system transition. We will discuss impressions from the first plenary session in Strasbourg, and we will identify key challenges for future legislative actions. Let's now dive into our meeting and talk about the politics, elections, and what is the most important, food systems.
Olga, to jump straight to our first question, June was the first time for the EP. June was the time for the EP elections and the election of 720 MEPs from all 27 EU member states. July saw the end of the 2019-2024 term, which was sure to be an ambitious, let's say, term full of hope and promises, such as the European Green Deal, including farm to fork strategy and legislative framework for sustainable food systems. However, it is different, and now we know it very well. We can summarize the previous term as a time of broken promises, a time of powerful lobbies, many failures of the scientific community for the climate, pro-animals and pro-human movements. It seems that the Green Deal is not so green. We still do not know the date when the European Commission will present the legislative framework for sustainable food systems, and there was a significant watering down of the Common Agricultural Policy 2023-2027 in April 2024. Ambitions to move towards a sustainable food system have been further put on hold by farmer protests. How do you see this, and how do you think the next term could be a repeat, or maybe we can see a small progressiveness coming up?
Yes, indeed. We had the term that just, let's say, ended, at least in the parliament, was a term where we saw, let's say, two faces from the Commission. In a way, the first part of the term was quite different to the later part of the term. It has been very disappointing, actually, now looking at it from where we are today, because the term started off very well. We had a very good start. The Commission actually adopted a strategy, the Farm to Fork strategy, which was also supported by the European Parliament. And it looked to the future with quite ambitious, I would say, provisions and proposals about a more sustainable future. We had the KJECI, the European Citizens Initiative, that received a clear commitment from the Commission and also by the Parliament. We had a committee, the setup of a committee of inquiry on animal transport. We had the ongoing evaluation and the revision of the animal welfare legislation, which is so outdated, as we all know. This was underway. So let's say the first part of the term, there was a lot of ambition. There were many expectations. However, things turned sour with the start of the Ukraine war. And we saw there the attempts by the industry to use this strategy to falsely claim that the EU's food sovereignty was under threat, and therefore there was no time for any progressive changes. So we saw the sustainable use of pesticides proposal to actually, taking a negative turn. And then after that, everything seems to started to fall apart. In the farm to fork strategy, we saw basically a U-turn from the European Commission and also from the Parliament in terms of the ambitious policies that the Commission had committed to in the beginning. So many of the files were either watered down if they were published, or were actually shelved, and they did not actually appear, as was, for the most part, the animal welfare legislation. So in a way, this trend also worsened by the fact that we had the elections coming up. So last year, the leading party, EPP, and also this year, they profiled themselves as a farmers' party in order to win votes from the extreme right. And also the Commission president, who belongs to this party, in a way abandoned her own program in an effort to appease and to approach farming lobbies. So there is an agricultural exceptionalism that in a way has become solidified by the EU institutions. And the last months, we've seen the farmers' protests, we've seen many populist decisions that were presented, and they completely overlooked, the policymakers completely overlooked the very clear messages we have from scientists all over the world that agriculture needs to reduce its environmental impact. So in a way, for politicians, the election race was a bigger priority than anything else. So regarding this new term, we have to say now at the start, we're not very optimistic compared to the last term. So we see, as we saw last week in Strasbourg, there is a rise of extremism in the European Parliament, with more extreme right-wing parties actually gaining power and having seats, and MEPs from their groups having seats in the European Parliament. We see a very anti-Green Deal trend, which the populists in a way have embraced. And we're afraid that this has spread a lot to the major, the majority party, the first party in the European Parliament, the European People's Party, the EPP, and there is this anti-Green Deal trend is actually a misinterpretation of what the Green Deal is all about. There is also a lack of public knowledge about the dangerous impacts of climate change. Everybody's talking about the climate change, climate crisis, but when it's time to actually take concrete measures and adopt measures to actually tackle it, everybody, moves away from those. So in a way, we have to wait and see. For the next few months, we will know soon what the new Commission's work program will be. But we need to stay very alert and we need to do as much as possible in order to push policymakers to present and adopt measures to actually tackle the crisis we're in, and make sure that all these measures are not postponed indefinitely, as is usually the case, as what we have seen so far with many of the Commission's work and also the Parliament's. Many of the proposals that were actually proposed, that were actually presented in the last term.
Yes, thank you so much. And I think it's kind of smoothly brings us to the second question, because we are now after the first plenary session in Strasbourg for the new EP term 2024-2029. And the first plenary session for many, as you said, newly elected MEPs. And as we know, you have been keeping a close eye on what has been going on during those debates. As a part of the agenda, the president, vice presidents of the parliament were elected, but also the president of the commission. It is also the selection of MEPs for the relevant committees within the EP. And what do these elections and appointments mean? And I also wanted to ask about what your observations and predictions are for the EP, EC, and food system transition efforts in the new term.
Yes, well, certainly we saw last week in the European Parliament the re-election of Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. A number of political groups supported her re-election, including the majority of the Greens. And we know that the Greens in the past have fought for the transformation of our food system. So along with MEPs from some other groups. But this time they did vote for the president, probably looking to have some negotiating power to get some green policies on the Commission's program. However, there's a danger that there are strong political forces inside the European Parliament that actually have declared war on these green policies, on the Green Deal, and including the president's own group, the EPP. So we need to see what will happen. Only time will tell. We need to see to what extent groups such as the Greens will be able to, let's say, influence from their position, influence policymaking. We have, at the same time, we need to recognize that we have ongoing conflicts and concerns around the world. We have the Ukraine war going on. We have a war in the Middle East. We have the financial crisis and many tensions in our society. And therefore, some of these concerns, in a way, put food transformation to the side. Okay, so they remove it, let's say, from the top of the priorities list. And we need to, our role is to make sure that food transformation stays high on the agenda, because it is crucial in order for us to ensure the survival of our planet. And in order for to ensure a future for the next generations. Unfortunately, many politicians do not realize this and are quite short-sighted, looking out for their own interests and political gains. So it's always a battle. We have a lot of work to do ahead of us. I think we will know more about what the future commission will be like after the hearings that will take place in the fall, the hearings for the new commissioner. So we will have a clear idea about what the program might be and what priorities they may have. So, we need to, let's say, take a rain check on this particular point and look at everything again and assess the situation in a few months.
And this is exactly what I wanted to ask you next about hearings and the elections of commissioners in the European Commission, because this is not the end, definitely not the end of the structural changes within the European Union. And the very interesting part is the upcoming hearings for the candidates, for the commissioners that will take place in the fall. And as part of the hearings, the candidates' positions in specific areas will be, of course, introduced. And so my question is, what is important to consider during these hearings and what can they reveal about the direction of the food system transition in the European Union?
Yes, well, the hearings will take place in the fall. We need to be very alert. We need to do our homework before and try to urge politicians in the European Parliament to question the commissioner nominees on the fate of the farm to fork strategy, on the fate of the various files that were part of this flagship strategy of the previous commission. We need to make sure that we remind nominees of what happened in the previous commissions and how many commitments actually were not materialized, were not realized, and we need to make sure that we let them know that we cannot accept another round of endless talks, because this is what a lot of times policymakers always like. They set up these talk shops, they have assessments, they have dialogue platforms. So, everything in a way is delayed because of that. There have been many, many talks, and I think we have a lot of that already. We need to go into action. So this message, I think, needs to make sure that the politicians actually respond to the urgent need for action and not just more talks. So we know that the EU policies have failed, and we know that they need to be fixed. So this is an important message for them. It remains to be seen, of course, what kind of populist concessions to the industrial farming sector will be made. Many of them usually disguised as help for small farmers. In a way, we need to reassure that the Commission acknowledges its responsibility and adopts reforms that were actually promised to the citizens, years ago, and did not become part of the proposals. I mean, they did not appear in this past commission's work in the end. So in a way, we need to avoid the mistakes of the past. Now, we have learned too that a lot of times commitments and promises are easily broken. We need to push to ensure that policymakers actually keep their word, and they will be held accountable if they don't do that.
Yes, and that actually, let's maybe a little bit dive a little bit more into that topic of those priority areas of actions in terms of food system transition, because I'm wondering what are your, let's say, other predictions, right? Because you've already mentioned some of them, and as well your hopes for the coming years of the next EC term. Are there any more key areas that, in your opinion, should be incorporated into the new European Commission's work program, and why? But also, are there any specific issues or topics that can no longer be postponed? And why is it crucial for this particular term to address them?
Yes, from our side, the priorities more or less remain the same. We call for the urgent legislative package on the animal welfare, revision of the that was promised last term and was not delivered, only partially delivered, just focusing on the transport of animals. Rather a proposal that I would say did not live up to expectations. I mean, a lot more was expected. We wanted to see the Commission call for an end to and a phase out and eventual end to the export of live animals. Even that is not even part of the proposal right now. And of course, the rest of the very important files are not there. Especially, for example, the on-farm welfare, which would include a ban on the use of cages. That was basically the result of the successful ECI that everybody had supported. That's not there. Nothing, the Commission is not saying when this will be delivered. So we need, in a way, we need to see reforms that will limit animal suffering. The existing legislation, it has been, what we have so far regarding animal welfare has been there for quite some time. It's totally outdated. The Commission's own services have said that, we also see how animal farming continues to be a major polluter, and actually uses so many resources, including crops. And this needs to be tackled, and we need to see a food system transformation. We need to see a transition to include more support for plant-based foods and diets, hopefully via the long-awaited Sustainable Food Systems Framework Law that was also now presented and is missing in action. So these are some of our priorities. I think we also need to be strategic this time around, because we may not have the opportunity to have so many asks as we had in the past, in the past term, since there was more ambition then, and it seemed that everyone was more welcoming of, let's say, of the policymakers, at least in the first half, of what the citizens have been calling for a long time. So we're probably not going to have the same again. We will need to be more targeted, more focused on what is absolutely crucial for us. And therefore we will have to, in a way, make, some decisions about what to push for, and with always in mind, keeping always in mind that we need to push for what is going to be most effective for animals, that's going to make a difference. So reforms that will actually bring some result, and not just those that will keep up appearances.
Thank you so much. So we also wanted to ask you about the food environment measures. So as we know, in the recent years, the food environment measures has garnered a significant attention, mainly within the civil society sector and activists, as a way to enhance the sustainability and the accessibility to healthy, ethical food choices. So one such measure that is widely considered is the Green Claims Directive, which aims to protect citizens from a greenwashing. And through the provision, it aims to influence our ability to make informed decisions. So our question is, what are your thoughts on the food environment measures being discussed today? And do you think that the Green Claims Directive has a real chance of improving citizens' engagement with the food system and protecting them from so-called food traps?
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, certainly this is not perfect, and there are loopholes. However, it is an improvement. It is positive that disinformation that companies a lot of times spread about their products will be limited. Because we see how many of these ecological claims on products are actually unsubstantiated, quite vague and misleading. A trained eye can see this, but also I would say even the average citizen now understands. I mean, you see green, the words green or sustainable or local, etc. You see these in so many products, but a lot of times it's hard to actually understand what this really means. When it comes to food products, we know very well that consumers are not well informed, and they need to be informed in order to make informed decisions and informed choices. But that's not really the case. We have the recent Eurobarometer survey, which showed that 2/3 of citizens who were polled would like to have more information about the conditions in which animals are reared in their country. This kind of information is not easily available. There are so many misconceptions about what animal agriculture is. We think of animals out in the fields when this is not really the case. I mean, the few animals we see outside in pastures are just so few, actually. They represent a very tiny minority of all the animals who are farmed today. We need to enable consumers to know more about the conditions under which the animals are kept. And so far, we can only inform consumers via what we have in terms of egg labeling, where there is some information, and also the organic label that in a way offers more information. But the rest, there isn't really much that enables consumers to know about how animals are reared. Also, you know, all of these need to be, the labels need to be harmonized, and there needs to be some sort of EU label so we don't have confusion in the various member states, and also different labels that in a way are voluntary but no mandatory label. Also, many consumers don't know much about the carbon footprint of the food they eat, because there's a lot of this disinformation that is actually spread by the industrial farming lobby. And many people don't know what animal agriculture's real impact on the environment is, and they need to have a better understanding of this in order to also in order for us also to support a switch to more plant-based diets that are and more environmentally friendly and better for the animals, of course.
And we're reaching the end of our conversation, but before we finish it off, we wanted to ask you about your dream. What is your dream in the context of the EU politicians and authorities?
Yes, well, politicians. Well, the word politician actually carries a negative connotation with the public. And this is an opportunity for them to change this, but it is up to them. We need to make sure that politicians listen to the citizens and represent the public, and respond to the wishes of the citizens, inspire the youth, and don't follow in the footsteps of those that actually came before them. Unfortunately, politicians so far actually have a very short-term vision. So we want to see a long-term vision, a long-term outlook that will ensure that there's a viable future for us and for our planet. We should not forget the world around us, the ecological footprint of humans on this planet, reckless use of finite resources, and the suffering we cause to other beings, including our own kind, of course, you know, this continuation of aggression. So ideally, we would like to see politicians embrace alternatives and support solutions to the problems, the many problems we face today. So this is a wish, which of course we'll see, you know, we will know soon whether we will be on the right track or not with this new term.
That's a very, very beautiful wish, I would say. And I think we are all keeping our fingers crossed for that.
Yeah.
And with this, I want to thank you all for listening to today's episode. Together with Olga, we assessed the European Parliament and Commission's 2019-2024 term, discussing the European Green Deal, the farm to fork strategy, and setback like the watered down common agricultural policy. We consider the impact of farmers' protests and the potential for the next term to drive food system transition. We also touched on the upcoming elections of commissioners and the importance of these hearings in shaping the EU food system transition. Lastly, we discussed food environment measures like the Green Deal Claims Directive and their potential impact on citizen engagement. Thank you for your attention. We look forward to continue the discussion in our next episode. Follow us on social media, Green Institute, and European Vegan Summit. See you then. Thank you.